Coming to you live from the Rockstar Studios in Ames, Iowa. You are now listening to Locked In with Coach RB. We're your one-stop shop for all things related to coaching college basketball.
Okay. All right, let's roll. Locked In with Coach RB is a podcast about all things basketball, the people, the experiences, and the game. We'll bring you fascinating personalities and the stories behind the headlines that you want to hear. I'm your host. I'm Randy Brown. I am Coach RB. And today's guest is a very special friend of mine, fellow graduate assistant from the mid-'80s at the University of Arizona, Tom Billeter. Tom Billeter, the head basketball coach at Augustana, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He's the all-time winningest coach at that institution, a national champion, two-time National Coach of the Year. Tom has set national standard of achievement at Augie, entering his 18th season at Augie. He has guided the Vikings to over 300 wins and the 2016 NCAA Division II National Championship, directed the Vikings to 8 NCAA tournament experiences, 2 Northern Sun championships, 2 Northern Sun tournament championships, and has coached 8 players to 9 Conference Player of the Year awards. Now, I know this guy pretty well, and from all that I just mentioned, I think I remember the most about Tom for changing his son Michael's diaper on the bar at Bob Dobbs in Tucson, Arizona. An amazing feat in its own. So, Tom, thanks for jumping on with me. I appreciate it, brother.
Who was playing that day that we were at Bob Dobbs? What was the game? Football game. Who was on?
This is the kind of stuff that you get me on. I do not remember.
Iowa, Michigan.
You're kidding.
No, we were at it was an 11 o'clock or some ridiculous kickoff time because we were 2 hours or behind. We were there, like 3 people were in Dobbs. It was bright sunny out. We didn't care. We had Mike because Paula was working or something, and we brought him in. Bartender didn't care. We set him right up on the bar, changed that diaper, had an adult beverage or 2, and watched the Hawks. Watched Hawks in Michigan. That's exactly what it was.
That is crazy that I don't remember, but I won't forget now, of course. So,
hey, RB, 35 years ago. That's
unbelievable.
35 years ago. Seems like yesterday. It's unbelievable.
It really does. It really does. And I'll tell you the memories. And our memories, of course, were spiked recently with the loss of our great friend and colleague Ken Burmeister. I remember things just so clearly, just as if they were a couple of years ago. It's amazing. Other parts of my life seem like a long time ago. Not these. These are amazingly sharp and vivid memories. Probably has something to say about, the period of life we were in and how cool those memories were. But let's talk before we get into Arizona, which is really what I want to spend a little bit of time talking, and then have you wrap it up with some things that successful young college basketball coaches have in their toolkit. But you and I parted ways after 2 years of being a GA together at Arizona. You went to Rice with Scott Thompson, and I'm going to let you just kind of follow the bouncing ball around the country like you and I did, but cover your part, and then you'll end up at Augie, and then I want you to speak about what's going on up there. It's been a special deal in Sioux Falls with you running that program up there.
Well, I could be wrong on this. I thought the time you were up there visiting is the weekend Shaquille visited with Jay Parker. I thought Jay Parker brought Shaquille O'Neal over for a visit, and you kind of looked the place over. I came back. You decided, I can't remember exactly, but you ended up, I believe, was going to Drake. Is that right?
I did.
Yeah, and I ended up going to Rice. I'm probably the only GA in America that had to go tell his wife and new baby, honey, I'm going to be a full-time assistant, even though they called it part-time, that it was a full-time job. I'm not a GA anymore. We're going to live in Houston, Texas. Oh, and by the way, we're going to make less money than we did as GAs at the University of Arizona. Think about that. But they're going to give us an apartment.
Right.
So we ended up getting an apartment, which was huge. We took a pay cut, and as you remember, we weren't even making $6,000 a year in
Right.
Arizona as GAs. We were making $5,885. And so, but that year, our first year of camp, we had 273 campers. Camp was going to have a lot to do with my income. The next year at Rice, we had over 1,200 campers because that had a little bit to do with my income.
Absolutely.
So we grew that camp, and Scott Thompson was the head coach, and then dear friends of mine, Gray Giovanni, recently retired from Augustana and Rock Island, and just did a phenomenal job there. And Willis Wilson, the head coach at A&M Corpus Christi now, and myself, we were the staff. And then we went and got a fellow Iowan, one Dan Kelly, who was a legend himself. You're going to have him on the show.
Quite a legend, yes.
Dan was our first GA, and I love the story. You know, you had to have like a 3.5 at Rice to get into grad school, even though they didn't have grad school, just to get in. We didn't have grad programs. He had to get in to just be a student. So he's like, oh, that's no problem. You know, he went to Briar Cliff, played ball there. Great Ray Nacky. So Dan took like a month to get to Houston because he stopped to see all of his friends on the way down. And every time he'd call me, his GPA kept going down.
Oh.
Well, maybe I was a 3.4. Maybe I was a 3. By the time Dan finally got to Houston, he was like a 2.7. And so we had to use our first exception because we could always use an exception to get a player that maybe didn't quite meet the Rice standard. I think we used our first exception on Dan Kelly, our graduate assistant, to get him into school as our GA.
It was worth it, though.
Yeah,
definitely worth it.
He's a dear friend of yours too. So
absolutely.
Went to Rice. You know, average ACT score there is like 1,500. You know, every other student's a National Merit Scholar. We were going to set the world on fire, and you know, we were going to press against. You know, you got to remember the league was Arkansas, Texas, Texas Tech, SMU, Baylor. I mean, the league was phenomenal. Our first year, we're 6-21. I think we came back and maybe won 8 or 10 the next year. You know, we got reality hit us in the side of the head pretty quick, but Scott did a great job. I'll never forget Dick Vitale when Scott took that job. You remember this, said, you know, I thought Scott Thompson was one of the outstanding young and upcoming coaches in the country, and then he went to Rice. He said, we'll never hear from him again. He said he took the worst job in the country. You know, it's the job that Scott did there and his vision, ability to raise funds and the things he did. You know, we ended up winning 16, going to the NIT our 4th year. In our 5th year, we won 20, beat Texas on national TV, Tommy Penders, and we all got jobs. You know, Scott went to Wichita with Gray. Willis got the Rice job, and I ended up going to North Dakota State at age 31 as a young head coach. And actually, you were the one, I didn't really know much about NDSU, and you kept telling me as you were the assistant at UND, you know, Irv Vinegar was getting close to probably making a change in his life, get into, you know, fundraising like he did, good guy. And one thing led to another, and you're the one I'd never even heard of North Dakota, let alone Fargo. I mean, I only knew because you were there and Rich. Yeah. So long story short, I applied. About 500 people applied. My interview in Minneapolis that year lasted about 8 minutes. I came back. Todd Smith, our GA at the time, was, you know, I'd gone to the Final Four with Todd. I walked back in the room. He goes, you're either getting that job or you don't have a chance. I was all trying to keep it. And one thing led to another, and you know, I ended up getting the head job at North Dakota State. And first year was a bit rough, but then 4 straight NCAA tournament teams, 4 straight 20-plus win seasons. We were co-champs of the league in '95. Great memories of Fargo, and really enjoyed that. Went from there with Fran Fraschilla to St. John's University. Interesting move. I really enjoyed it. It was a great school, great people. It was fun to be in the mecca of basketball. We played at Madison Square Garden. We had a pretty good freshman that year named Ron Artest. We had a couple seniors, Felipe Lopez, Zendon Hamilton, who weren't too bad. We had a really good senior named Tyrone Grant, who actually played for the Cavs that people don't remember. LeVar Postel had a 4 or 5 year career in the NBA. I mean, we had 4 or 5 really good players. Was there. Richard Hamilton had about 40 against us. But we finished second in the league, and then we got upset. We got upset by Detroit in the first round of the NCAA tournament, which Felipe made a little more famous. They did a nice 30 for 30 or whatever, one of those specials on Felipe, and you see him missing that last shot against Detroit in the United Center. And, you know, he just super young man, really great kid. You know, from there I ended up going to Texas A&M, and I worked for just a wonderful guy by the name of Melvin Watkins. I was there for 5 years. I'd been at Rice for 5. That made 10 years. I'd been in Texas and loved it. But, I always have a theory. New AD, new president back then. I always moved.
Right.
I thought it was a good idea. So I left a year, before, Melvin. We actually we were 500 in the league. We beat Tennessee at home. We beat Texas at Texas that year. We had some really good games, really good wins. We had Antoine Wright. We had just signed AC Law. We had some really good players. Bernard King, all-time leading scorer in the Big 12 for a half. So nobody knows this. We were playing Kansas. Bernard King set the all-time Big 12 scoring record. They announced it. About 4 minutes later, Nick Collison hits a shot. He became the all-time leading scorer. So that's kind of a cool story, and nobody ever – that changed hands in the same half. You were at Iowa State, so you remember a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
We had Texas Tech for Bobby Knight to win like his 900th game or some ridiculous game, and some buddy of mine calls and says, hey, they got a victory party right next to the airport for Bobby Knight's 900th win. Let us know that like that morning. So we hadn't even played the game yet. Some stuff was kind of set up. I'm not sure that was ever true, but a buddy of mine told me that. So we sure used that for motivation and ended up beating them. That's when they had Andre Emmett. They had good players. They were good, but we ended up beating them that day. So he had to wait another game to get his milestone victory. To this day, I never saw that restaurant set up. I'm not sure it happened, but I always thought it was kind of a cool story.
Good story, yeah.
Yeah. So from A&M, I came here in 2003 to Augustana, and we weren't very good. It was the old North Central Conference. You still had USD, SDSU, North Dakota State. It was a heck of a league, Omaha. Great Division II league. That was the lure that brought me back. I really enjoyed that league. Came back. And, the rest of those schools right around 2005-06 all started going Division I. We stuck it out. The last year of the North Central Conference, we finished second, one game actually behind Mankato. We swept UND that year. We swept USD that year. Now, UND did beat us in the semis of the postseason tournament, but we swept them that season. But then those teams all left and ended up going D1, and we ended up transferring over. The NCC was no more, and we ended up in the Northern Sun. And we've been competitive. It's been a great league. That one little area where Division II, in my opinion, is still extremely highly thought of. Really good players, great coaches, really good fans, good media, and I think they do a great job of just loving basketball. And obviously, that's Sioux Falls. We're in a definite sports town that really does and always has loves basketball. So that's it. That's the 50-cent story about as quick as I can tell it, Randy.
Well, it's a good one, and it's just barely on the surface of there's so much underneath all that. Of course, we don't have time today, but maybe in another podcast we'll get into some of the really interesting things that happened. The one thing that I remember about you taking that job is because I'd been in the league at North Dakota, so I remember I was just there a year, but I kind of remember I had a flavor of what their program was like. What they were known for, and they were pretty much I just felt pretty much of a middle of the pack, type of job. And I knew you'd come in because you hire well, and you learn that from all the people that you worked for. But you guys do such an unbelievable job of recruiting. Those two things to me are what allowed you guys to get on the map Division II wise, and culminating with the national championship in 2016. Man, can you just talk about Augie for a second?
Randy, you bring up good points, but I'm going to kind of go back. You brought up Ken Burmeister earlier. The funny thing, you were further ahead of me. We went to Arizona. I was 25 years old. I had never been higher than an assistant sophomore JV coach. That's what I did at Hinsdale Central in Chicago and at a school called University High School in Urbana. I was really raw. Didn't know anything. You had coached longer. You had a way better feel for things. I felt way more like I was a graduate manager. I really did. I was like a gopher, do stuff, set stuff up, and then learn as I was out there. The thing that was different was Lute. Lute would put you he'd use you. He'd put you out there. He'd help you. You'd help scout with scouts, and they'd let you talk about it. And Lute would watch film, or Lute wanted you to be a coach. And that helped me tremendously. I can never ever thank him enough, or Scott, just like all of those mentor stuff that helped us so much. But the thing is I really wish I'd have known then what I probably would have been better prepared on the floor as to how to exactly teach things and what have you, spacing and everything involved with basketball 100%. That I was just sitting there like a sponge learning. Well, the one thing you and I did learn that you helped me a lot was recruiting. You know, we worked for Kevin O'Neill. We worked for Ken Burmeister. We worked for Ricky Birdsong. These are three of the all-time. If you named, you know, in the last 30 years, the top, you know, possibly 20 assistant coaches in recruiting, those three names could come up in the same conversation.
Absolutely.
And so we got to at least be a sponge for those guys and help them. I'll never forget, we had no organization. You completely put in the recruiting organization, 100%, you and Joan. You guys sat there with that Apple Mac computer and you organized it, you put it together. We had all the, we had basically finally all of the questionnaires on computer. You know, you spent forever doing that. But we got to be really involved with recruiting. And the way Coach did it, my first year, I was way more with Scott and Lute with certain things. You were with the recruiters.
Right.
We're still not, you know, Lute had only been there a couple years. So the thing Lute did is he went out and fundraised all the time. So, you know, we'd drive him and sit there, keep our mouths shut or just sit in meetings. But, you know, so we really got to learn how to fundraise and how important that is to a program. So when our next jobs came, we didn't sit there and go, oh, I need more money, get it for me. We would go out and get the money. So when we flip, you got to have those parts. I got to do recruiting with Kevin O'Neill. And so that's a whole nother story that we could tell. You got to get Kay on here sometime. You know, but on the floor, I wish certain things, but they were great. Don't get me wrong. And I'll never thank Lute enough for how much he gave us and used us. But in a way, I'm so thankful to God because I was so naive and stupid. Everything we learned recruiting-wise, we learned. We got to learn from the best, and that's our foundation to this day on how to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think it made us pretty good recruiters. You know, I mean, we've had, you know, I'm not going to go into detail, and this is self-serving, but, you know, Division I assistant for 15 years, and I, you know, we've both been a part of a number of top 10 in the entire country recruiting classes. That, you know, we were the assistant coaches very much helping that happen. You know, we learned to recruit and appreciate it. And we learned scheduling and to appreciate the importance of it. And we learned how to build a program from the bottom up. And that, you know, if you don't have what you need, go get it. Don't whine about it. You know, go get it done. You know, here we've built one of the most beautiful practice facilities, in my opinion, in the country. It's as good as anyone's.
Without a doubt.
And, you know, it took me 4 years, but I raised, I raised that money with the help of my athletic director, Bill Gross. We raised every penny. And we built a Taj Mahal. It's a beautiful facility. Well, we needed it. We had one gym. Our old gym was turned into a theater here at Augie. We had one gym for everybody's classes, sports. We needed that practice gym. Well, you know what? I learned from Scott Thompson and Lute Olson how to go out and get the money and do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know I'm going a long way around a question that you had, but, you know, yeah, you hire well because you and I were exposed to good people. I know how important a staff is. Our staff does a lot together. We need to get along. We will go after practice and grab a Diet Coke or grab whatever and visit about practice and set it up for the next day. You know, on the road, we do interact well together because you're together a lot. You're traveling. This ain't flying to see recruits play. Go ahead and practice early, drive to Minneapolis 4 hours, watch a kid play in 4 hours back. And we do that a lot. You know, I mean, that's something we do a lot. We have to get along, and it's really important. You treat people right. You treat them with respect. You allow them to grow. You don't micromanage them. And they'll work well for you. So, yeah, I've hired good people. We understand the importance of recruiting. We understand the importance of relationship building, both fundraising and recruiting. And I have had great players. I've had a number of freshmen of the year in our league. I've had MVPs. I've had an MVP in the entire country, and Dan Jansen, and probably the second place one was Casey Schilling. They probably seriously finished 1 and 2. I believe they did for the Bevo Francis Award. I was told that both of them were in at least the top 5. Neither one won it, probably canceled each other out. So we have had great players here, but we've worked hard to get them, and we've worked hard to keep them, you know, and make them feel important, needed, wanted, and that this is the right fit for them. So it's been an interesting run, and I just can't thank the 35 years experience that, you know, I was able to acquire throughout this time to help build and sustain versus just, you know, flash in the pan.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that any success we've had after Arizona came initially from that group that we learned from. I don't think there's any question about that. But you know, there's two things actually. As I hear you talking about Augie, because I've been up there a lot and followed your team and watched almost all your games on the internet. You recruit good players, but a lot of people recruit good players. Then I'll go back up a year later. And then I'll notice a kid 2 years later, and they're like completely different kids. They're bigger, they're stronger. Obviously, you've got them experienced. You guys do also a great job of moving kids along. And that's great because you guys actually are a throwback, and probably others in your league, a bit of a throwback in terms of, you have a core guys in your sophomore class, and they become juniors and they become seniors. And that's something you've always done. And that's not the case in college basketball, but I think it's worked really well for you guys.
For some reason, though, you and I give Lute a lot of that credit for how much you and I enjoy
sure.
individual development. We enjoy individual practice. They've changed the rules a lot, where you now can have your whole team together for 4 hours a week, even at Division II and all these things. We still do individuals. I don't know if everyone does. I feel like you can really help a player with individuals on a lot of ways, not just basketball. That might be a day they come and want to sit with you in the office afterwards and visit about something that's on their mind. It could be at home. It could be in the classroom. It could be a lot of things other than basketball. I think, working with Scott Thompson, you've been with Gary Garner, Rich Glass. We've been with coaches who really enjoyed being in the gym and getting kids better. We would show up after class, you and me, we'd have game plans class and be in that law class, and we'd show up and, 9 o'clock at night, Scott would be out there with half the team, playing three-point game and doing all these shooting. And we'd get in and rebound. And, we just grew up with it. We really did. Even though we were adults and what have you, we grew up with it. In professional career, we grew up with it. And so it's very important to us, to give our players what we consider a college experience, how you travel, how you're geared, how you're coached, how you're taught is part of that college experience. And I've got great assistant coaches who come up with new ideas. We constantly come up with new things. We stay current with the new technologies because you have to. And you and I have had this talk. Lute Olson was an older time coach. As he got older, he'd been in it a long time, a lot of years. And he changed. He wouldn't just sit, he had great guards like Khalid Reeves and, whoever he had, Mike Bibby, he would adjust to their talent. He didn't make them play the way he thought they should play.
Yeah,
he let his players.
Miraculous what he did in terms of adjusting with the game. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good.
Can't stay, but you still got to have your beliefs, your foundation of how certain things need to be done. But you can't just be so strong in them that if it isn't the way your team's going to react well or play well that way, you got to figure out how to mix the two. You still got to be on time. Don't be late. You still got to run the floor. You still got to, play defense, jump to the ball, be physical, body showing hands. You got to do all the things correct that you really believe in, but then adjust, and even so much more offensively. I just think offensively you really can adjust to your talent level.
Well, and I'm going to interject with something that I think that coaches, young coaches especially, really need to keep in mind. And I talk about this a lot. We were gifted, and a lot of people are gifted with good people as they start their career. Because if you're not, there's a really good chance that's going to affect your career in a lot of ways, and maybe not positive ways. So one of the things, I have like a bullet point list of when you're looking for a job, what are things to look for? It isn't just there's a job, I'm going to get it. And at the top of my list is people. And when I was young, I didn't necessarily look at it like that. It's almost like recruiting. A young coach looks at all the bells and whistles of a job. But you know what? If the people are not good people, if the people are not doing it for the right reason, and make a big emphasis of this in my mentoring program, if you can find out if they'll give you some autonomy, if they will let you do some things in that program. That's why I'm so big on Division II graduate assistant positions, because you guys can allow them to do a lot of things. Now, sometimes they're allowed to, sometimes they aren't. I know they are in your program. Man, what a huge bonus that is for somebody starting a career or fairly young in their career, to be around people who will enable them by basically, hey, learn by doing. And don't just sit to the side and be, well, he's just a GA, that kind of thinking. And that's in our DNA. But any of the young coaches listening, I think it is just monumental that you pay attention to the people that you're getting ready to go interview with, because if you go to work with them, you're going to get you're going to get those people's best or worst every single day. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. I know you're going to share some stuff
but you know what, Randy?
at the end.
I would even go a direction while you just said that, because you're really right. But I would almost say there's two other ways of looking at this. Number one, for young guys, this is what you did. I want to compliment you here. Even as GAs getting hired at Arizona, anybody that wants to get hired into assistant college coaching at whatever level, you got to bring something to the table. And it really isn't to redo our offense or tell me our defense stinks or that we are a very good rebounding team. I don't really – you can always have a piece of that conversation.
Sure.
But, you know, what do you bring that's valuable that I really don't have? Ability to take over a mess in an office and get everyone on the same page. And you did completely change our recruiting. You know, you completely organized it. You changed the file system. You changed how they even – I mean, they were struggling to even have that back then, the Don Mead recruiting services. And
sure.
They were all over the place. You know what I mean? Stuff like that you think's easy. But you know what? It wasn't. You went in there and you got those big, huge hooking, like, clipboard things that you'd punch holes in, and you got them all by the right month, the right, you know, everything, you know, which it seems silly, but it was huge, and it really helped everyone. It was easy to go get the number of a coach back then. Remember, we could call anybody. But we had to be in the office. We didn't have cell phones. We were calling at midnight in the office, you know, to
calling everybody.
You know, we could call freshmen and sophomores. We were calling. There were no rules. And so you brought something that was incredibly valuable to that program. What I tell young kids, we can get to it late, but the one thing, bring something valuable. And number two, I know this will sound bad, probably they don't, but, you know, be willing, almost as a player that you were, be willing to be coached, be willing to allow, you know, we're not getting on you for we like you. It's not personal, but let us help you. If we ask you to do something or how to do it or change it, this is your time to almost be a pleaser in a certain way. In the sense that, okay, if coach wants it this way, and if you don't like it, when you do get your job down the road, do it the way you want to do it. You know, compare the two. But you do want to go in a little bit and be, you know, be a good teammate, you know, and really help make this thing go as well. And I know it sounds kind of, you know, conflicting of what I was already talking about. No, you have your own opinions. We'll sit in meetings and you can definitely tell them. But the system's going a certain way. You're the graduate assistant. Learn that way, whether you like it or not. And you know, come in there and really be a team player and really come in and do the extra, do the little things that even help that keep going the direction that it's going, I guess, is more of what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. And when I talk about interviewing or when I talk about pursuing jobs, that is a big one, because I say, listen, you can't come in and say and be like everybody else. You've got to come in and say and convey the fact that you can bring a value to the program that they don't have right now. Not in a boastful way, but, you know, you don't want to be like everybody else. You want to be, and that's where that creativeness, and there's, I mean, I've got, I don't know, we just covered it last week, a list of, it's exhaustive, of different expertise or specialties you can have within your entire game of who you are and what kind of coach you are. And I think that's essential these days, because there's a lot of people trying to get a small amount of jobs.
I totally agree. Here's the thing, Randy, and you know as well as I right now, GAs aren't that you know, you don't have hardly GAs at D1 anymore. You know, they fit it in somehow. They have a name for it. They'll become something, but they're not on the floor like we were. They're not coaching and scouting. And, you know, how many times you or I would be up at Arizona State to watch a game because we're playing that travel partner on Saturday. It would be a Thursday night, and we're a game ahead. You know, we'd miss our games, but, man, that was cool. I loved doing it. I know Scott had me doing it a ton, you know, and I appreciate it. Now, I missed some really good games that I didn't get to be at that we're playing in, but, you know, it was the right thing to do. And so, you know what, as I got older and would recruit, you know, I think, you know, Melvin liked having me at the games at A&M, but I can tell, you know, we were recruiting and rebuilding. I can't tell you how many games our first couple of years at A&M, I wasn't even on the bench. You know, Melvin didn't need their coaching. He needed players, you know, and so I think, you know, even learning those kinds of things, I don't see that as much. And I actually see a lot of head coaches that want their whole staff there at games. I get it. Maybe it takes you out of routine, or maybe the players are like, oh, they don't think I'm good enough. They're going to get someone else. Well, that's up to that coach's philosophy. My philosophy, I'm pretty comfortable with how we're going to do things that game. Hayes in the barn, we'll get any players. You know, if we need to be out and we're going to get that kid, be at his game, you don't have to be at ours. That's not because I don't think you can't coach. It's not because I don't want you there. I want players. You know, so all of these little tidbit things that you're telling I don't think they see that side of things very much, or understand, you know, what all is involved to being a college coach. And I don't feel like they get a chance to learn like you and I did. They are more thrown right in the fire right now because of the way GA positions work. That's why D2, great level to get started.
Tremendous level. Yeah.
Great level. You recruit, you scout, you do everything. If you're good enough. If you're not good enough, I ain't sending you out. But if you're pretty good, and as you've seen, I've always hired within. I just assistant coach leave for the ministry this year, been with me for 15 years, played for me. Was a GA full time. I mean, I've been here 17. He's with me, I think, 14 or 15. You know what? I'm moving my Iowa guy, Casey Schlatter. Everybody knows Casey. He's here. He's done a great job.
Yes.
He's good. I'm moving him up. He's in my system. That's what I do. Hey, I would have probably hired a former GA. I know I would have, had I opened it up. But you know what? Casey's here now. He's plenty good enough. That's what I do. So if you're researching programs, I think it's fair to see, how does this guy hire? I would do that. It may never happen for you, but if it's between 3 jobs all of a sudden, and you see one coach has tended that in mind a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to research what you're doing, just like recruiting and everything else, and be a step ahead. And maybe 90% of all you're doing will never come into play. But that one time that it does, that 10% does, that might change your life.
Yeah, I wear the guys out in my mentoring group with talking about details and talking about being creative and talking about research.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important. I'm going to throw in one little anecdote, one little story here. So I went to school to University of Iowa with Lute Olson, Ken Burmeister, Scott Thompson, Jim Rosborough, Tony McAndrew. All of those guys were on the staff at Iowa, and I was a young assistant. And I really cut my teeth on the game going to practice in the afternoon, because you could actually, if you really, really stretched it, you could hear what was going on the floor from the sideline. They had it kind of barricaded off, but
because they want people watching.
No, that's what I did every afternoon, and that's how I learned. And I also took a theory of coaching, which I just incredibly. When I think back of this, Ken Burmeister led that class, but each of the assistants took classes. Lute came in and covered the inside triangle. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen, right? And so I grew up, just absolutely idolizing Lute Olson, and got a chance 2 years later to follow him to Arizona. So here I am. I think the first year, Tom, I was in awe. I mean, it wore off after a while, but I'm still thinking, I'm working for Lute Olson. This is way too much. But my story is, at halftime, we didn't sit on the bench as GAs. We went up to the mezzanine. There was an area up there where we would watch. Yeah. And we went up for the first exhibition game. And I remember Lute saying, okay, now I'm going to send you guys up. You can really, if it's a zone or something, you can see better up there. And you bring down observations at halftime. And I'm thinking, is he just saying that, or is this for real? And actually, nobody knows this, but we had live phones underneath the bench at Arizona, which could connect to the assistants, because we had a phone up there at half court. So we walked down, and I remember being nervous, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if he does ask something, what am I going to say? And then I go, nah, he's not going to ask anything. We walk in there, everybody gets together. He's, okay, guys, well, first half, let's see. And he turns to me and he says, Randy, what'd you see? And I'm telling you, I froze. I'm like, Lute Olson just asked me what I saw in the first half. And I froze, which seemed like about 10 minutes. And I uttered something which was probably ridiculous. But that was the gift we had. We were around guys like that. Tom, I did some math on this. That staff that we had, that we were part of in Arizona, if you add up all the head coaching positions in college, the group of us comprise, and including the one that you've got impending here, comprise 14 college head coaching positions, an NBA head coaching position, a national coach of the year 3 times, you and Lute, 2 national championships, yours and the Arizona 97 champion, and then, of course, Lute being in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And we walked in every day and got to learn. Holy smokes. Now, I'm not saying that, hey, you need to be out there looking for something like that, because believe me, you're not going to find that. There are very few of those that ever happen. Of course, at the time, we had no idea. We were just getting our back slapped and told what to do, go right, go left, do this, do that, wear a yellow tie, it's a TV game, stuff like that, which was beautiful. But that was really a gift. But
I will say this, RB, I think you and I always appreciated it, even during that
no
time.
question.
I think we were grateful every day. We walk in that office, you and I just kind of look at each other and go, boy, we are blessed, because I don't think either one of us ever took advantage of that situation or didn't appreciate it.
The other thing I'm so huge on is handwriting, and of course Lute Olson responded to every piece of mail that came into the office. It could be somebody that sent a bouquet of flowers and thanked him for something, and he would write a handwritten note, and he would reverse hand flip it somehow around the corner of that open door into my office. He had an amazing boomerang effect on those notes, and then I'd make sure they got sent out. To be a handwriter these days is almost obsolete because of technology. But to all the young coaches out there, to all the coaches, period, learn to handwrite, because it's like a handshake. And I learned that from Coach Lute Olson. I learned that from my parents too. But so obviously one of the things we wanted to do today with Tom is just bring out some really cool things that happened to us when we were young coaches. So thankful the University of Arizona experience, and I think we're going to have to revisit this, because there were some awesome things that people would laugh forever if they knew, and we'll probably go back and make that another podcast in its own. But I want to wrap up with just some nuggets, some takeaways in terms of as much as you and I know about entering this profession, and once you've entered, to be able to stay in and accelerate and move up that ladder, it really takes some really fundamental key things. I teach them all in my mentoring group, and just shed some light on a couple of those, if you would.
It's funny because, Randy, we keep going back to a lot of the same things that you and I, it means so much to us. I hope these younger coaches coming up understand that the need, almost to a certain extent, of relationship building. When you're around people, being around people, treating people correctly, treating them right.
So
being
important.
a person. Yeah, because that might be a person who you have no idea calls you back in 2 years. And they might not even be in the profession, and they go to a game or do something, or they know this person that can help you raise this gift to do that. You don't know. And between the two of us, we could tell 10 stories each of a person who helped us that we didn't even have contact with for a number of years. Right. But because of how, and you are so good at that, but how you treat people and make them feel important, make them feel, how it was just great. It's an honor to have met you, be around you. That part is so important. Number two, is have your beliefs. And when you do, I love this story. We talk about hiring people. Dear friend of ours, Jeff Rutter. I get the job at North Dakota State partially because I had coached in Chicago. They want, the white kid had just played at South Dakota State, took him to the Elite Eight, was a great player, Chris White, and they wanted a Chicago person. I really wasn't. I coached at Hinsdale. I knew a lot of people there, but I hadn't recruited there from very hard for Bryce. We were all Texas and California. Long story short, they wanted me to bring in a brand new assistant coach. I hired Irv Inniger's GA as my full-time assistant.
Right.
Yeah, that was Jeff Rutter.
Right.
And I knew he was. I just knew he was the right. I just knew he was the right guy and the right fit. And he ended up, I know, working for you, and I know we're dear friends. But regardless of the position, I don't care if you're the low on the totem pole or you're the highest, wherever you fit in that accordance of responsibility, you do your job as well as you can do it. You do it without saying a whole lot that's going to do anything but help the team win and help each other be successful. And you just keep working hard and understand you're going to have a lot of really great times. You're going to have some tough times, and you just got to get through. Don't be a whiner. Don't be complaining. You just get through it, and you get better. And there's a toughness component because coaching ain't easy. And as time goes on, whether it be family, whether it be, weather depend, there's so many funny things and elements that come into play that you don't even think about when you're 23 wanting to get into it. There's so much that's going to come at you that you never expected. You better have a toughness to you too. You better be able to accept things coming your way. You better be able to adjust. You better not have much resistance to change. And you better be able to just take things head on and figure it out. A lot of companies hire coaches. They like to hire players and they like to hire coaches because these kids have done more than most because of the practice situation, how much is expected. They become captains. They've learned how to make decisions at a young age.
Absolutely.
They have to be on the floor in front of people and perform. Coaches constantly are learning, making decisions, having to do things on the fly in basketball 100 times a game. You have to get along with people. You have to understand, that there often is, a person above you that you have to work for, but a lot of people below you that you have to be, helping them as well. There's a lot of reasons athletics lead to very good things into professions. And as a young coach going into that, you really need to understand and know your place, have an ultimate goal, but understand your place at the time and how you can consistently grow each year. What have you done to make yourself better? And you control that. You can control if you want to be quiet or not. You can control if you want to add to a conversation. You just better be right.
Right.
As an assistant, you're as good as two things: your last recruit and your last suggestion. That's really about what you're based on as an assistant more than not, and that's going to be that way until you become a head coach. That's what pretty much your platform is going to be.
Right. Wow, that's fantastic stuff. Coming from a guy that's going to be in his 18th year at Augustana. They're going to have an excellent team next year. They'll be fun to watch. And we're going to revisit, Tom. We have so much to break down. We worked together once for 2 years, and you would think that we've worked together every year that we've been in coaching. I mean, we just have so much similar. We're so similar. We know all of the same people. We have, huge extended contact families. And we just, beyond funny stuff and stories and that, which, of course, we can always share. Those are awesome. It's just, these meat and potatoes are really important.
But, we've always stayed dear friends. We've always stayed in contact. We've stayed close. We've always had a good idea. And, one thing, RB, you think of something good, man, you're sharing it. If I thought of something good, we're sharing it. It was like, I'm going to keep all my ideas for my program or whatever. Now, we both understand the game. We appreciate the game. We love the game, but we respect the game. And if we can get other people better at what we've had a chance to do, or we can make the game better, that's what you're doing. You're trying and doing a great job of making the game better. You're growing the game through your future, next coaches and everything that you're doing. That's a credit to you, and that's really an important piece that, I hope people still understand. There's much to be learned out there, and there's a whole new, there's always something new to be done with this wonderful game that we all love. And the most exciting thing is to see what's coming around the corner next, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it every single day. It's a passion, and to me, it's given back a little bit just from this unbelievable journey that we've been on. We've been gifted, so that's the least I think I can do. And that's interesting you say that, because the last thing that I'm going to say is that you'll hear coaches say a lot, "Hey, if I can help you, give me a call." And that might be one of the biggest jokes of the profession. And so here's what I want to do. All of my contact information is very accessible to you. I'll have Tom's contact information also with mine in the show notes. And so in the notes along with this podcast, you're going to be able to, and please reach out. I mean that. I think people are so used, Tom, to hearing people say, I'll give us a call. I'll send you all that stuff, or I'll do this for you. I'll do that for you, and then not have people follow through. They quit asking, and so we've got a wealth of knowledge, but we also have the ability and the heart for the game, and for other coaches that we will reach out with a call, sending materials, we'll email you whatever, exhaustible amounts of resources. But any way I can help a young coach, man, please contact me. And Tom would tell you exactly the same, because we love sharing this game and maintaining the integrity of the game and what it's meant to us. We want to, continue on. So please reach out and get a hold of us. Reach out to Coach Tom Billeter, learn from him, and follow his team as he heads into his 18th season at Augie. And Tom, thanks so much for being on. We're going to do this again, maybe many times.
It was fun. It always is. Always enjoy visiting with you, and keep up the great work. You're doing a great job.
All right. That's great. Thanks, Tom.
RB, that was fun.
I really appreciate those of you that stuck around until the end of the episode. If you feel like you've gained some knowledge during this, please subscribe and share this podcast with anyone that you think would benefit. I've attached all documents and contact information in the show notes below. Check back in next Thursday for the next episode.